So, my name is David Hawthorne, for Lockleys, and I'm the chair of this committee. I'd like to welcome you to Growth and Regeneration Scrutiny. We will be playing fast and loose with the agenda tonight to accommodate people's travel needs and stuff like that. So, you're going to have to keep on your toes, I'm afraid. So, should we go round for introductions, starting with councillors on the committee? Should we go that way?
Councillor Jenny Bartle. Councillor Emma Edwards, Councillor Bishop and Ashley Downward.
Councillor Marlon Bennett, Bill Ward.
Councillor Weston, Henry Braintree.
Councillor Kevin Portney, Bishopsworth.
And
Councillor Tim Rippington, President Meeting.
And now, should we do officers go around this way?
Good evening everyone, I'm John Smith, I'm the Executive Director for Growth and Regeneration at the Council, I should say.
Don Alexander, Cabinet Member for Transport. I think I fall between the two categories.
I'm Felicity Williamson, I'm Performance Advisor for GNR.
Good evening everyone, my name is Alex Hearn, I'm the Director of Economy of Place here at the Council.
I'm Jim Cliff, the Planning Operations Manager dealing with all things Section 106 and community infrastructure ready, so still related.
Abu Brother, Head of Transport.
Good evening, David Gibson, I'm the Strategic Director of Infrastructure for the West Midlands Combined Authority.
Good evening, my name is Michael Parsons, I'm Head of Service for Capital Delivery for the Client Parsons.
And Joe.
Oh, sorry. My name's Jo Holmes and I'm the Scrutiny Coordinator here at Council.
Thank you. I'd also like to note that Dan Boyd is recording this meeting for his own personal gratification. So
it's fun.
It's here. Thank you very much for doing that.
Chair, could I just introduce another first?
Certainly can, yes.
So Karen Mercer is there, she's the Project Director at Temple Court for one of those ones.
Lovely, thank you. Do you have any apologies for that?
The only apology I had is from Councillor Hussain.
Right. So I'm expecting Councillor Varney to appear at some point. So nice. And does anybody have any declarations of interest they would like to play? No? Excellent. So one of the things we'd like to do is just move the report about regional group working on transport schemes right to the top of the agenda. So over to you, John.
Okay, thank you very much. And it looks like we have very much. So, Chair, we talked about this some time ago in Scrutiny Plan, didn't we? That it would be very helpful to have a session on our joint working with the combined authority, given that the Council works on a number of items with them. What we wanted to do collectively was set out really the extent of joint working, the governance, and the breadth of the portfolio of work that we do together. So we did talk about whether senior colleagues from the combined authority would be prepared to come and talk with you as well about that, and I'm delighted that they are. So if we could go on to the contents page, that's great. So what I plan to do, Chair, is do some introductions in a moment. I'm then going to talk about the overall governance arrangements that we've got. I should say, into part of the introductions, I think David in particular might just want to say a few words from his own perspective about working with the Council, which I'm looking forward to. We'll then talk about we'll then talk about the key projects. I think you were very keen in the committee to then talk about a couple of projects and how that worked, particularly from the government's point of view. So we've chosen one that was led by the combined authority and one that was led by the Council. So Adam's going to talk us through those. And then Adam's also just going to do an update on where we are with the City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement Programme, and there's been some realignment based on work on that. So, you know, with David and Malcolm around, we'll take questions on these. So, in terms of introductions, I'll move on to that. So, David is the Director of Infrastructure at the Combined Authority, who we work with very closely, and Malcolm is the Head of Capital Delivery, who also worked previously on that, joining us on the Temple Portal. No, guys, so we'll look at both some time. But gentlemen, that's okay, I'll just allow you to introduce yourself as well.
Yes, so already made that introduction. So I've been in the Combined Authority for 6 months now, and I have Directors Group, which has delegations from the West of England Combined Authorities Committee to spend various amounts of money on various projects depending on what they are. Overall, we currently have a £1 billion portfolio under governance across 7 programmes, and clearly Bristol City Council is right in the heart of an awful lot of that delivery. Significant number of opportunities across the region at the moment, and obviously Bristol City Council is a key member of the West of England Combined Authority, sits on our committee, and that's a really important part of the governance, if you like. So our role is to work closely together to make sure that we're delivering the scope and the requirements of all of those programmes as they have been bid for and funded largely by DFT, of course. And it's our job to deliver those outcomes in partnership with Bristol, South Gloucestershire, and Bath and North East Somerset. And it's an exciting time to be looking after such a significant portfolio, really. The scope of what we're delivering goes across Bristol Temple Quarter, and you're going to hear more about that later on. Future for West, the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement, the Bus Service Improvement Programme, Metro West, Active Travel, just to name a few. And the joint working extends to officer working groups, which are designed to inform the delivery and the planning of all of these programmes and projects to make sure that they remain on track and that issues can be dealt with and resolved quickly and easily, and that works well. And then through the formal governance, through the Regeneration Development and Transport Group that Malcolm to my left chairs, prior to things coming up to the Directors Group, which I chair. And if we are unable to resolve issues at the Directors level, then they go up to the Chief Execs. And in the 6 months that I've been in the role, we have not had to refer anything up to Chief Executives. I think that's very indicative of the good, close collaborative working that we enjoy together. So that's where I fit in, if that helps.
Thank you, John. Yes, so leads a group of programme and project professionals to deliver project programmes across the region, working in collaboration with Adam, of course, and his team within the city. Some of you have met before, actually, on X-Network Rail. Some of you looking at me and probably thinking, I'm sure I've seen this before. X-Network Rail works with John and others on the development of Bristol Quarter. And what we demonstrated through that programme was actually collaboration is success. And what we've seen more recently at delivery of Portway Park and Ride, and railway station in the city, again, collaboration free success. What we also want to do alongside David, Adam, and Alex and John is in that collaboration. Because over the CRSTS programme takes us up to March 27, there's a lot to do. And the only way we can achieve that is through collaboration. So we will continue to work closely together with our colleagues in Bristol City Council. Frankly, I don't see us in the secret paper between us. To be honest, we're all the same people, we're all the same job, we've all got a hard, difficult job to do. But we've got a lot of money to spend, all for the right reasons in this region, and we want to make a difference. So we're here to do it.
Thank you. So, Chair, I'll just finish off the introductions and then wrap through the slides. I'm sure the main folks have been asking us questions, and David and Matt will be happy to take questions as well. Obviously, the main focus here is scrutiny of the council is on Adam and myself and Alex as the council officers, but you're very happy to take questions and to speak on it, which is good. Thank you. So, just to finish the introductions, Adam is well known to you, of course, and has appeared here a number of times. I think it's probably worth just mentioning Alex is the relatively new director of the company in place, and is I think, is this your first scrutiny?
It is. It's my first formal meeting of any kind at the council, actually. I've been here about 9 weeks. I joined from North Somerset Council, where I worked for 5 years. So I had a different kind of relationship with a combined authority, and I'm familiar with a lot of the programmes, a lot of the projects, and the people. We work with collaboratively, and of course I work very closely with Adam on our combined interests through these programmes. I suppose I'm not a transport person by trade, I'm a town planner, really, so I'm really interested in the ends of the means of the investment in the transport. What is the end? The end is obviously around opportunities for people, increased growth, that sort of thing. So I see my job here as trying to join things up a little bit to make sure that that's what we're keeping the eyes on. Really.
Thanks, Alex. So I'm going to rattle through the slides as I said. So, Joe, if you want moving on to the description of the governance. That's a busy slide, for which apologies. I should also say it actually doesn't, it focuses on David's portfolio. It's got the overall combined authority infrastructure. It doesn't reflect the full amount of joint work that we have. So Alex and I are also involved in the business and skills area, another director, colleague of yours, David, and actually also with the environmental team, which have sort of equivalent versions of that. So there's a lot of joint working across various areas. Joe, if you don't mind moving on to the next one, because that just says a little bit more detail. So David chairs the Director of Infrastructure meeting. That is a monthly formal meeting, which has a lot of papers, a number of which feed out to the main committee, but gets through a lot of other work as well. That, as I say, is a formal paper meeting. We also meet weekly, which is a more informal meeting, to talk about current issues and anything that we need to get fixed between us. Malcolm, as he mentioned, chairs is to support the RDC steering group, I think. That meets monthly as well. And then there are various steering groups set up for the different projects. So, Chair, just to give you a flavour of the extent of that.
What does RDT stand for?
Thank you. I'm going to learn that.
Regeneration, development, transportation.
That's good. Thank you. Apologies for the evidence. Well, I will try to. You can see now the presentation is littered with them, so moving on, Joe, if that's okay, thank you. So, that is a bit more magical. Sorry about the earlier version. So here's the just a selection really of some of the areas of work that we're working on, and we've separated them out into those that are led by the combined authority and those that are led by the council. But a range of really significant work, some of which we're going to talk about later in a bit more detail. But I just want to give you
That's good. Quick questions on that. One of those has a category of development, whereas all the others tell us what they're developing. So I'm just wondering if that's a different kind of category. It's the one about the
A37.
Yeah.
That is a good question. Adam, is there any reason why?
Yeah, so it's just with that project, whilst it's split into three, there are three different elements to it. There's the central section, southern section, and northern section. The central section and the southern section are moving towards FEC. We are then doing a revised OBC, which is the stage before FEC for the whole corridor, and that will then develop further with bits in the north. So, because it wasn't taking so much space, it wasn't necessarily just development, but effectively there are bits of it that are FEC, and then the rest of it is around OBC stage.
Okay, so at that point, I'm going to hand over to Adam in any event. So I'm just going to talk you now through the M32, which is very much led by David and his team, and just give you a flavour for that and the governance of that. And then the A4 Portway, which is very much led by Adam's team. Do you mind moving on, Joe? Okay. Next one.
So the M32 scheme was, I suppose, a ECC proposed scheme that is led by the combined authorities. It covers two authorities. It's in the JLTP for the park and ride on the M32. It goes across the border of South Blossom and Bristol, and also incorporates national highways, which is one of the key challenges of the project. So the position we've got it to, we've divided it into two phases, which is about what's pragmatic to deliver. It's a complicated scheme, probably the most complicated of all the schemes on the CRSDS programme, I'd say, due to the need to interact with other bodies like national highways and the fact that it is their road that we're talking about. So in phase one, we have reclassification of the M32, which is absolutely critical. So if we don't reclassify the M32, we cannot implement the park and ride site because we need an upgrade junction The other option of putting in a grade separated junction is both extremely expensive and physically not actually achievable if you retain it as a motorway anyway, because of the merge lengths that you require for traffic on motorway slip roads. So reclassification is a fundamental part of the project, which is why having national highways involved is so key. What we will then be delivering is bus lanes inbound from effectively from junction from the Park and Ride, but also from Junction 1 itself, so from the slip road of Junction 1 into the city, and then outbound from just north of Junction 2, the IKEA junction, if you like, out to the Park and Ride site. The reason we haven't got all of the bus lanes in is that to do it in both directions would require moving central reservations and much more complex works, which would require one of the elements of phase 2 realistically, which is de-trunking, which I'll talk about in a second. So the Park and Ride site itself will have a mobility hub. It is fairly close to UE and also right next to UE's Sports Centre. So there's opportunities there for the Park and Ride to perform other functions in terms of vehicle charging, e-bikes, e-scooters, that sort of thing. Phase 1 will also include land purchase. Obviously we can't build a Park and Ride if we don't have the land to build it on. The planning application, which is another extremely complicated element, because we are talking about building a green belt, so there won't be any simple approaches there. And the key thing there, the construction of that new Apparate junction access, which is obviously fundamental to the delivery of the project. Phase 2 then, which we will be developing whilst we're doing phase 1 and then potentially deliver as part of the next phase of CRSDS, will be looking at the trunking of the M32, completion of those bus lanes and bus stops along the route. Now, we have included, and I think probably National Highways have also concluded, that if we want to achieve our full vision on the M32, we need to trunk it. So the full vision partly includes bus lanes the whole length, and that means, as I said, taking out central reservation in some parts, but it also includes putting in some bus stops along the M32. So one of the key issues that was raised was about Metro Bus was it doesn't stop in St Paul's, because it runs up and down the M32. It is our road just at the bottom end, but in essence it's on the M32 as a motorway, so very difficult to have a stopping service. So we are missing areas like St Paul's, Easton, some Werburghs, etc. They are missing out on connections to really good quality bus routes. Now, national highways are governed in a different way to us, so as a local authority and as a regional combined authority, we will be looking at the wider needs of the region, so the economic needs, the air quality needs, the transport needs, access to jobs, that sort of thing. National highways focus tends to be on a more strategic level. Road safety is kind of a very, very, very high issue for them. It's obviously an issue for us, but not quite the same level. So, in order to implement those bus stops and to put those kind of facilities in, it really needs to be a local authority decision, which is why we feel de-trunking is a key kind of element of the next phase of the M32. So it's really important that we're working with WECA and that WECA are coordinating this project, because to have influence on national highways and bodies like that, it is important that we have a regional voice that we will talk to the same voice. So it's really critical, and the next slide which shows the governance, I think, shows that where we have a link to national highways through the steering group. Sure. So we have a governance process where we have the work streams at the bottom, the work group there led by the programme manager, and a steering group which includes representatives of national highways, BCC, South Gloss, WECA, etc. And that steering group obviously is quite important, because it's the key point where we're working with national highways to get their input and to get their ownership of the scheme to some extent, so they're fully supportive of the scheme. We can't really just see it as a project that we are doing and asking them to say yes to, they need to be involved in the scheme and buying into the scheme. So that's really critical element of governance. We then go up through what is effectively the worker governance, through RDT, directors, chief execs, council board, etc. all the way up to committees. The idea being that the steering group has aired all those discussions, making decisions, etc. Before we then go through the governance process before we sign that decision. So A4 Portway then, a different project where we are leading the project and WECA is overseeing the programme in essence. So this is one of the strategic corridor projects, linking the park and ride site at Portway into the city. So the scheme encompasses the whole of the A4 from essentially Jacob Wells roundabout out to sort of the Portway roundabouts with the M5, but mainly to the park and ride site itself. On the left-hand side there you have an image which shows the new plan entrance and exit to the Portway Park and Ride site. That's just going through FGC approvals at the moment, so we brought that element forward quickly because it starts to present the opportunity for buses to access the Park and Ride site from the north of the Portway rather than just in and out of the city. So we can start developing the Portway Park and Ride site as more of a hub. We have the railway station there. It would also enable buses from there to serve, for example, the Green site. So it gives us much more flexibility with the site. The rest of the scheme, we are at OBC stage, which is working up the design of the route along the Portway into the centre of the city. So the relationship we have with WECA on this scheme is one where we are setting out what our proposals are. They're performing essentially an assurance role, so saying this fits with what we sent and bid to government, the CRSDS. Yes, you're happy with that element. Could you do more of this? Is that necessary, etc. And WECA will have that kind of oversight process of the scheme. Obviously, they're responsible for running the buses also, so it's fundamentally important for them that they understand what we're doing and what the scheme looks like. As this sets out our governance, I wouldn't say this is every single element and step of our governance. That would be quite a big sheet, but essentially we have project teams that feed into the work packages and into the project board for that scheme. We have some input at various points from monthly transport board and scrutiny, depending on which project it is. And then we will go up through our decision pathway through transport pilot, site board, growth and regen board, mayoral briefings and cabinet member briefings at the same time with cross discussion between those, aiming to get to cabinet to get key decisions signed off. At the same time, we run a parallel WECA governance process, which is effectively the same governance as what we've seen, but we are managing both those processes at the same time because we need to get internal approvals to do things as well as get things signed off through the WECA process. Now, once we have a certain level of sign off of the WECA process, a lot of it becomes just signed off at the director level rather than having to go all the way to committee, but some of them do need to go to committee. So we have to manage those processes together. So just a couple of the rebaselining exercise. We've just gone through a process with WECA, which I think WECA are taken to committee Friday. So essentially PFT gave the regional authority, or planning authority, opportunity to rebaseline both the programme and the funding. So basically saying, we didn't give you a great deal of time to set out your programme in the first place. Here's an opportunity for you to revise that and tell us where you are, how you're looking at delivery, etc. So if you go through that process with combined authority, as have the other authorities, there's not much reduction in scope in the projects that we're leading in Bristol. The paper will highlight some reductions, so that's largely because elements have already been delivered, so things like the bus table coming road, the old market gap, various other small projects we've already brought forward through other means. There will be other scope changes which will be in the papers which have just come out. That's all subject to DFT approval. There will be a CRSDS 2, we've been told, ideally, which follows on after CRSDS 1. There is also scope for over-programming within CRSDS 1, so it's not a good idea to plan to spend £540 million or to spend £540 million you should be planning to spend more, because as projects evolve and are delivered, some will get delayed, some will change. So over programming enables us to potentially bring some other projects in to develop them through business case stage, so that depending on what happens with funding allocations and how projects progress, we have more scope and flexibility for ensuring we make use of all the funding that is given by the government. So CRSTS 2 will be worked up by, I think we're leading on development of proposals, and that needs to be submitted sometime next year, I think some next year, so obviously we'll be feeding into that process. That's the end of the slides.
Anything else, Rogers?
I think I would just say on CRSTS 2, it's not confirmed. There's an indicative pot of just over 8 billion, and at this stage we're not clear whether it will be a bid for funding or whether it will be an allocation. But what we are clear about is that our performance on the delivery of CRSTS 1 will be a deciding factor in how much we are able to secure.
I'll just add on the point of over-programming. There's already an existing over-programming list with British Department of Transport, CRSTS. It covers 10% of the overall allocation for about 50 million pounds of work. Last Friday, it's not DFT like to work. Last Friday, the Department of Transport asked us to increase that programme from 10% of the allocation to 25% of the allocation. So we'll be working with officers of all UAs to develop that list further. That may or may not be what we will see how we progress further forwards. DFT's asked that back ASAP, so we need to do some sharp work on that.
Can I interject? Can you actually define what over-programming means?
Yes, I can. I'm
glad you asked
that. So the over-programming list, we've got a core list which has gone through a strategic element case and presented to the Department as value for money. And that core list is all the suite of projects you'll see in the mitigate option. Behind that core list is another set of projects which, if we had a bit more time or money, we would go and do. So there's a list of about 15 million pounds of work. We're going to increase that list to 135 million pounds of work. So any other projects we feel are strategically important for the region or strategically important for the city are likely to end up on that list. And if we've got time or money, as Adam pointed out, some projects don't actually get to the end game, so therefore you're going to drop the money. You don't want to drop the money, you want to retain the money in the region, so we'll start some new projects trying to move at that pace. That will come off the program list. Does that help?
So it's an off-the-shelf program, basically.
Yes.
Can I ask how those projects are selected?
In the same way we selected the original ones, so proposals put forward to the infrastructure we saw on the screen earlier on, they get ratified through the directors of infrastructure CEOs and eventually get into committee paper for endorsement.
Right, okay, so there isn't like a criteria.
No, the value for money case is usually otherwise.
Jenny, and then Tim.
Okay, moving to your questions.
Please, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, first clarification question. I think I read somewhere that CRSTS has to be spent by 2027.
Correct.
So, if we, I don't know, what's on the list, I don't know, build half a bridge, I don't know, repair half a bridge with the money, what's your kind of contingency, that's the word I'm looking for. What's the contingency for if we don't deliver these projects on time, within budget, by the end of the time? I don't understand what happens if we get halfway through a project and it's not delivered.
So, just for clarity, projects need to be delivered on March 27th, just a little bit.
Okay.
If we fail to do, so we're happy through doing a bridge project, for example, there's two choices. We either negotiate with the Department of Transport for an extension of time, or they draw a line in the sand, so you can't have any more time, and there's a revenue risk, i.e. we would have to pay back the money.
Right, okay. So the follow-on question from that is, which of our projects, because I mean, in that most of them are not really boots on the ground at the moment, which of our projects are at risk? What proportion do you think are likely to be delivered?
I will refer that to
That's what
Yeah, that's more of you guys. You're just opposite me.
So I don't have any problem with it.
How is your tax entitled?
No, yeah.
So we've been through the program exercise, and our program shows all of our projects being delivered by March 2027. I would say the Sea Centre is a big project and is the one that finishes latest in 2027. You know, typically with transport funds, one fund follows another fund, and there does tend to be things that get picked up towards, you know, early on in the next fund from the original fund, as long as that's planned and made clear. There is a fairly significant amount of match funding that goes into the project as well, which the authorities are putting funding in, so there will be discussions about where that plays into, you know, where that money gets spent, for example. But, you know, as with any project and programme, they have COVID turn up, 10% inflation, things change, and that's why we have, you know, we have a programme management office that will oversee the whole programme. It will be managed as a programme, and we'll be looking as a region to be agile and flexible if things change to be able to ensure that we're making useful investment.
Okay, that's my
It's a very good question, and it's something Alex and Adam and I will be watching very closely as we go through the next few years.
So the important thing to remember here, Councillor, this is a really important opportunity to re-baseline based on the impact that inflation has had since the original allocations were made. When we went into this re-baselining exercise, it was crystal clear that our performance is really important in terms of future funding. So we subjected the entire programme to some very detailed, rigorous examination to make sure that we're not putting forward something that we don't think we can deliver as a region. So we've got good confidence that we will deliver the entire programme by the end of March 27.
I'll just add, just to give you hopefully a bit more confidence, we're putting in measures to monitor things at every project on a monthly basis. So if we flag early enough that the project is struggling for whatever reason, and we can take measures, we either take it off the list, or we've got additional resources on it, we can get additional contractors. The sooner we know, the quicker we can intervene and help.
Thank you. So, questions? I've got Tim, Mark, you can put your hand down, Andrew and Molly. That's the order.
So I just want to stay on this idea of over-programming for a minute, because I'm trying to understand how we would have 25% extra programs that are ready to go. Are we saying that that would be because some of the original programs don't happen or are much smaller versions of what was originally planned, and therefore there's money available?
Yes.
Do we know how re-baselining at this point? Does that mean we already know which of those programs we think are going to be smaller and cheaper than we originally advised? Because I would have thought otherwise by the time you get to that point, it's too late to implement those other projects.
Indeed, there is always that risk. The rebaselining has identified that there is no project that is cheaper than we anticipated. You might not be surprised to hear that, because in the inflationary environment. The over-program, the rebaselining science also identified that all the projects we've got within reason are deliverable to the outcomes we were expecting and also delivered. Now that is at this current stage. There are some projects that are on that list that have not yet reached final business case. So they made a decision when it gets to final business case that the project is either undeliverable because it's not providing good information, or it's undeliverable because it's within the schedule. Most of the final business cases are within the next 18 months. So we have to make a pretty rapid decision. We're going to swap out one project and another project. But what the current transport rules are, you cannot add new projects to the CRSTS. You cannot do that. Only add new projects that are on your over program list. So important our over program list is realistic. So when we expand it from its current 50 million to 135 million pounds of work, it needs to be realistic projects and programs that we know we can just move forward with. Does that help?
Yes. Can I just come out?
Of course.
On one project that I happen to be fairly interested in, which is the A4 corridor.
Yes.
Now I know that from my understanding is that originally the funding for that was going to cover some of the things that are now proposed as a phase 2 if we get extra funding.
Yes.
So would that not make that project cheaper in phase 1 than it was originally planned? Or has inflation cut the money so much
What we're planning to do now is you'll see the figures that come out.
Yeah, so that particular one has actually become cheaper. Okay, because I thought you said that none of the projects were cheap.
Well, so I said none of the projects you want to supply is one of the projects cheaper. Of course, if you take that into account, you're going to get an efficiency.
Yeah, so that some money is released there, but it's probably eaten up by inflation, is that right?
Yeah.
Before Mark comes in, can I ask just a quick yes or no, or just a go-out question about the open programming list. When will the open programming list be actually defined?
It's a great question, Councillor. When I've worked that through with my colleagues within all the unitary authorities, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
We were advised less than 7 days ago from the Department.
And we'll be working with the Dawn administration on what our version of that will be.
But the DFT haven't set a deadline about when you must approach.
As per usual Department of Transport, they will be advising us.
And then they'll tell you it needs to be done by such and such.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you'll have an hour's notice.
My recommendation is we press on sooner rather than later.
Definitely. Mark?
I think variant on the theme on the open programming list, or the reserve list, which is probably the better one. When you're devising that, do you put them in a particular rank order? Do you try and make sure there's a different range of cost ones? Because if you're going to swap them in and out, there's no point having a reserve list where they're all 135 million cost. So do you try and cover them in? Does there have to be a geographic spread? I'm just trying to understand how the list is compiled, and if you suddenly find yourself going from 50 million to 125 or 135 million, then you're going to have to allocate officer time to quickly work up the bare bones to put it on there. So is there a priority order there?
There isn't currently a priority order. The priority order will be determined by the directors of the infrastructure group, which Alex is a member. And we're anticipating, I haven't worked through the process yet, but I'm anticipating that each of the unitary authorities will bring forward their ideas what should go on the programme list. What's currently on there is projects from small interventions for cycling related schemes all the way up to bus priority measures. So you've got a good range of things in there. So you can pick and choose depending on which projects are coming out. I wouldn't recommend you do that necessarily, but you do want to have a discussion through the member group on which one you're going forward with, because equally you want to have a discussion on why the last one's come off the list.
And I guess I'm looking to Don a little on this. There is political input on that one where they're directing, which ones. Because if you're going to, you can get the phone call on Monday morning and give us a list now. So I'm assuming you won't, but if you did, then I'm assuming that Don and the mayor will have fed in saying, this is consider these, by the way, this one's top.
I guess it's a question for your own officers within Bristol City Council, how your mechanisms within the authority work when it comes to the crime process.
We have lists of things that we'd like to do at the time, but for a particular ask like this, which is very important, we would consult with Don and then agree a list with Don and then send it home.
We're obviously constrained by the fact we don't want to deliver by 2027. That kind of narrows things down. But the other thing is, we were elected on the manifesto, so we look to commit to fulfil the commitments we've made in the manifesto, as you should.
Thank you.
Firstly, apologies for my...
Sorry, take it.
No, I'm just saying you can have a second one.
Okay. So I just want to apologise for my tardiness. I made a mistake of using public transport to 45 minutes from Clinton Village to get down.
Excuse was already using it.
A few questions actually, probably for John, but I'll give you a chance to please do. So the first question might actually be for another session, but it's about Western Gateway, because obviously that's kind of a powerhouse for our region, and I just wonder what sort of officer level engagement there is with Western Gateway, if there is any, or is it just at a leadership level? So obviously they're interested in connectivity, in reaching net zero, innovation, skills, job creation, so all things that we should be working together on. So is there a connection with them, or do you want to talk about that at another session?
Well, we certainly could do so. Just to be absolutely clear, because there are two Western Gateways, and the second one is particular in transport. So this is the powerhouse, as you say, linking across the. So there is a Western Gateway. DFT funded Western Gateway Street Transport Board, which looks at various things, and that would be particularly rail focused. But anyway, I just wanted to check. We do work with them. I have met with the director, and we have discussions about, and they have attended my ETM and talked about opportunities. We can probably work with them more, and intend to do so going forward. Projects Council, but probably you get
The second question is about funding. So you mentioned that most funding is at the WECA level, but there's some funding that comes directly to Bristol Council, so Horizon EU funding and Innovate UK. What's that funding being used for at the moment? Are there any particular projects that funding is focused on?
Well, I think there are some of us that can, but obviously there's Section 106. We happen to have the Section 106 tour in the room. But there are things. But I mean, the Innovate UK funding, that's particularly environmentally focused. So the key projects on that is sustainability and energy-related projects. And was there any others?
We've got a Horizon EU funding on East Bristol as well, the part of the engagement processes.
And that was direct?
Direct from the EU.
Rather than via the
us,
yeah.
Most
of the trial, the DFT funding tends to come via the
We got re-added to Verizon like 2 weeks ago.
Final question is about the A4 Bristol to Bath corridor, which obviously very close to my heart, as most of the section in Bristol is in of Bristol to the west. Now, you said that in your report that BCC officers are members of WECA working group that guide the scheme design. Now, the Bristol administration has made it clear that they don't support a road proposal down York Prison to Rowan, but yet the consultation that's come forward at the moment from WECA is all about putting a road on the old Bristol to Rowan. And I'm just wondering, how has that happened? If BCC officers are working with WECA officers, they're guiding WECA officers, you know, surely there's some information coming from the top saying, well, we won't be supporting this road building project. How has that got to the consultation stage? Are they ignoring our advice? Or have officers not listened to the top-down advice from the administration? What's happened there?
So, very happy to answer that. So, this is a slightly unusual project, it's fair to say. There's the only thing with this match way that started out, this element of it anyway, as a locally led project and has become a regional project, combined authority project. I think there were two reasons for that. One of which, obviously, is a regional project. It does cross boundaries, and there are two other elements to it. The sort of central part of it around Higgs Gate, and of course the significant amount which includes Bath. So I think it was a sensible decision to view it as a single regional project. But as you know, from some of the discussions, one of the other challenges that we've had is it was very difficult to find. It's a very difficult area to find solutions in. That remains the case. And we had got to the point with the locally led work that we could not find or recommend a solution that was acceptable to the administration to take forward. So it was around that time that we had discussions with Malcolm and his colleagues, and they agreed to subsume as part of the overall regional project. So we continue to have dialogue regularly. We were obviously aware that consultation was going out and what the routes were, and we had discussions with that. And in fact, Malcolm briefed me about it.
Indeed, so that makes his views very clear.
So this is a consultation about what, as you know, Council, is a very difficult area to find the right solution that the combined authority are going to talk to.
I just think it's a bit strange that they've come back with pretty much identical options that were rejected previously. It just seems it's like the Irish referendum or the Maastricht Treaty. They got it wrong the first time around, so we're going to have a referendum again until they give us the right answer. How many consultations on the same options are we going to have until people realise that people are rejecting this road scheme? It's been rejected by the administration in Bristol. It doesn't have a lot of political support. It seems crazy to keep flogging it dead.
I don't have any further.
Thank you, Molly. Thanks, Chair. I was actually going to ask similar to what Mark asked, so we've got part of my question, but I've got some questions particularly about the N32 scheme, so I don't know if it'd be helpful if we went back to the slide that shows what was proposed. I think it's slide 10, about that one up, sorry. Yeah, perfect, thank you. So the first question is just a clarification point, so I'm not really clear. What's the difference between the reclassification of the N32 to deep trunk
Reclassification, the national highways have roads that are motorways and they have roads that they manage that are A roads.
Yeah.
So if you reclassify it and change it from a motorway to an A road, it's still managed by national highways as a trunk road. If you de-trunk the road, it's no longer a trunk road, it is managed by the local authority.
Okay, so it's
ownership of the asset in essence.
Sure, so it requires both phases basically for Bristol City Council and West Midland Combined Authority to become the highways authority
So that would come with various maintenance responsibilities and such, which obviously have conflicts in it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's useful. And on that point, obviously there are very significant works proposed anyway by National Highways as part of these viaducts, restorations that need to take place. Are wants as a local authority and combined authority being included in that conversation to ensure and construction I think is due to take place from 26-27. What we are seeking as the end goals will be incorporated in that body construction.
So yeah, we are involved in discussions with National Highways about the development of their scheme, so they're involved in those discussions, we involve them in our discussions. At this stage, I would say neither project has full sign-off, so it's not chicken and egg, we both know what we're doing, but funding needs to be fully agreed and signed off for both projects, and obviously we will be looking at how they interact with each other when we understand the full detail of what their project is going to do, when it's going to be delivered, and when we understand that our project as well. What we wouldn't want to do is do one, then come back and redo it all again. That wouldn't make any sense.
That was sort of what I was getting at, and I suppose because of the timescales, it's unlikely to have the M32 fully de-trunked, so in our control before this most soonest renovation is. Okay, then final question just on the sort of park and ride issue and discussions we've had obviously with Rebecca. Well, is there anything you can share about where we are with that in terms of has the site been located? Is that progressive basically? Is what we get.
So I think we're going to be there to start the stakeholder consultation.
We've got discussion this side of Christmas,
very soon in terms of potential locations for the site. Obviously, it's next to the M32. Somewhere, up towards John, there's a variety of locations where it could go, which all in a fairly similar location. Those discussions will get started fairly soon because they're pretty critical to enabling. It's probably, I would say, the second biggest risk is getting the site of the land, the approval of all that after the risk of working with National Highways and being their road and ensuring that they're happy with what we're proposing.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, last question.
Yeah, well, I was following up on Marley's questions about the M32 actually. The M32 is obviously, crosses boundaries, and this is it's been going on for a long time, the attempts to get this working. I'm just wondering whether, is this an actual benefit that we're seeing from having WECA, that we're finally going to be able to deliver this project, because instead of two unitary authorities sort of running back and forwards, has WECA been able to sort of to work between those authorities and come up with a solution? Is that how we've got to this point, or is it just that both authorities have realised that it's absolutely crucial to do this?
So, I think it's fair to say there's been talk, desire of putting the park and ride on the M32 for many years. There were proposals to put it in as part of Metro Pass that got turned down because the site wasn't acceptable. There have been differing views from authorities about suitability or not. I think the difference I see now is that the authorities are definitely pointing in the same direction of the project. I think WECA bring a degree of realism in terms of those discussions with National Highways, and that understanding there is a regional project here that they need to be engaging and they need to be working in. I think WECA help with that influence of National Highways, who are a regional body, one little bit of their network, so certainly think WECA would be very beneficial on that one.
And finally, given the sheer volume of traffic that comes in on that road, and the fact that we're trying to cut that substantially with the park and ride. I'm just wondering why this has never been considered for mass transit, or whether that is a further ambition for that route, especially if you're going to be adding stops in Eastville and whatever. It seems to me that the amount of modal shift that you want to achieve to get people out of their cars on that particular road, it would be a perfect example.
The M32 actually doesn't have huge amounts of housing near it until you get to IKEA and beyond. This will all green space. Now there's different ways of running park and rides. So if you're visiting park and ride, they're actually there, but it doesn't stop. You've got a long Ashton park and ride that stops a lot of time in metro bus route rather than what we call a geared park and ride route. So our vision certainly sees it as being more of the metro bus type route. So it's stopping where there is population centres. It then needs to go in and around the city centre. You could spend a lot more money putting in tram tracks up and down the M32. It's a pretty smooth, fairly straight road. You can probably achieve a fairly similar thing in terms of the number of people you need to move as well by using buses rather than trams. So trams can take a lot more people, but there's a limit to how many people will use that corridor. There aren't that many people living on the side of it until you get closer in. So I think our view would be that a rubber wheel solution, aka a bus, is the most appropriate approach for the M32. There's nothing to say that you wouldn't at some point in the future turn it into a tram, but a bus can be a mass transit system that runs often enough and has enough capacity as well, particularly on a road that you'll be able to operate at 40 miles an hour on a bus all the way in, so you don't have any delay.
Thank you. Any more for any more? No. Thank you, Malcolm and Adam and Alex and John for that.
Malcolm and Adam will probably
hang on a bit.
They'd be very welcome, but in particular, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So I did mention that I was going to be playing fast and loose with the agenda. So I'd like to knock off minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have anything they'd like to attach back to so consider those accepted? Can we put into chairs business, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any?
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah, no, the annual business report.
Oh, yes.
So for that, yeah. Everything was there. Oh, you might want to do public forum.
We could do public
It's
forum.
up to you.
Yeah,
No,
let's
it's you.
do Suzanne's public forum statements. Because we can fit that on the screen. Suzanne, would you like to speak to your statement?
Yes, so hello everyone, Suzanne, I'm a resident. So I'm too late to ask a question, but I'm very curious how many houses have been built in the year 2022 to 23, and I think that's relevant to growth and regeneration. So if anybody else wants to ask that question and try to get an answer during the course of this meeting, I'd be absolutely delighted. And then, can I just say, with my Totterdown hat on, I'm really interested in the Temple Quarter discussion that we're going to have, and what's happening with Grosvenor Hotel and whether we are actually going to get the bus stops and the pavement back around there. Very interested in the southern entrance, which I think will benefit Totterdown residents, and curious when reference is made to the A4 access route, exactly what that means and what it's used for. Whether that's a servicing road or whether actually residents and people will be able to use it. So I've been a bit cheeky, but that's my statement, thank you.
Some of those questions might well be covered later. Now we'll go on to the annual business report.
Yes, let's just clarify. So, regarding your statement on the original bit, you were just asking if members wanted to, would members raise those questions on your behalf where possible. So we want to make sure I've got that straight. Thank you. Yes.
So I think John wants to say something.
Yeah, Suzanne, thank you for the statement, thank you for coming. I haven't got the answer, but I'm very happy to take it away and get an answer. So if that's okay, rather than wait for a question to come back.
That's great. Thank you very much. I know it's known, it's been submitted to the government. It's just
very good. Well, we'll do that. So, and Karen and I will try and pick up your other points as well as we did the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Alright, so this is my annual business report, as you probably know, is taking the first meeting of each municipal year. Just to confirm really some details about the actual commission. So there's 4 points there, which is for you, which I'm hoping you've already looked. Just check your terms of reference as a commission. The chair, as you may have already gathered, is Councillor Wilcox. Vice chair is Councillor Varney. Meeting dates for the rest of the year. So the first one, obviously we're here. We've got these 2 dates. Two other potential dates for the rest of the year. I'm fairly sure that those 2, if you're agreeable, will be the next 2 dates for the other 2 commission meetings this year.
And the November meeting was moved to clash with the beacon rules.
Yes. I've shifted the date of that, apologies, I didn't realise they clashed. So I've moved that from the 30th to the 27th. But I think then, if everybody's agreeable, that we'll carry on with those 2 dates. The work programme is at the end of your meeting papers for today's meeting. So I think that's about it really. It's really just to confirm the details for which we do at the beginning of every year. So if you're happy just to note that report, that'll cover that off, if that's all right.
Yeah, any good questions for Marley?
On the work programme, I don't know if it's been missed or if it should be included, but the motion we had on train station closures, one of the points in that was with the Machias chief officers, not train stations. That was to refer the matter to both the Regen to be looked into. I didn't see it mentioned in the work programme. Should it be in there following that motion? It should.
Sorry, after the agenda setting meetings. Yeah, it wasn't, does it?
It could go, wasn't the tone of King for that.
That sounds like fun.
Could you clarify what that is, and then I might go on?
Full council, there was a motion about closing ticketed offices.
Right, was that the last?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was voted through.
Right.
Unanimously. And it did have a clause at the end of it saying that both the Regen should visit it.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, okay.
So we can probably take that on February's meeting.
Okay, I'll go and have a look at
Though I
that.
suspect events might well overcome us. Exactly, hopefully.
Don't we have a
list that will have do you have an insight, Mark?
No, just curious. There's an agenda setting meeting, isn't there, in 2 weeks' time?
Yeah.
Is it best to put that to there so we can work out how best to slot that in and what kind of resources we think we need for it?
I'll get some advice about what we can actually do as well.
Yeah, so see, that gives a bit of time for the officers to come back to us.
That's fine, I wasn't aware of that, thank you.
I think it's the 12th of October we have
it is, yeah, we just moved it, I think, yeah, 12th of October, I'll double check that. Yeah, it is as well.
I didn't know that because I looked at my diary for next week and picked the wrong week, so I saw it there and it panicked.
Yes, it is, 5 o'clock as well. I'll add that to your agenda then to discussion about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else about the business report?
Okay.
Okay. So next on the agenda is the Q4 performance report. And Felicity would like to speak to that.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. The timings of the meetings don't work that well with our quarterly reporting. So we are talking about the 22-23 Q4, the final year-end data. And obviously some of the information in there, if you have had a look at it, around the transport projects, you've obviously had far more up-to-date information now. But essentially, I'll just give you a little bit of an overview about the structure of the report, and then I'm happy to take questions. The Q4, or all the quarterly reporting, is focused on the business plan contents, and there are 3 different types of measures in there. So there's the business plan actions. So these are things that don't tend to, they're not sort of numeric, but it would be something about, you know, developing a strategy or implementing something. In each quarter there are updates, and the people involved in that give the action a status. Then there's the performance metrics, the priority metrics, which are primarily sort of council owned and things that we can influence. And then the outcome measures are the more sort of one city measures that obviously we have an interest and involvement in, but have less control. The reporting, there's different ways of looking at it. So when we do the business plan, we look at it with the 7 corporate themes, but obviously your remit cuts across different themes. So that's why in the report you'll see that we've tried to put which metrics and actions and things relate to which themes. So there isn't a sort of nice overall simple summary. But you'll see from the figures that your priority metrics for 2023, 58% of them were on or above the target, but 67% of them had improved compared to 12 months ago. Out of your 20 actions, 71% of them were on track or better, and then the outcome measures, the one city area, so only 30% of them were on track or better, and so 44% of the outcome measures had improved compared to last year. And the structure of the report gives you that summary. It picks out sort of key elements from the 7 themes, because the way we look at it is we have thematic clinics looking at those 7 corporate themes, and so in your report you've got a copy of each of those final theme reports, but then the list of the metrics, so the table with all the different colours and the statuses, they're the metrics that relate to your remit area. So there's a lot of information there. We're hoping for the year that we're in now that there will be an interactive dashboard, so you'll be able to look at these metrics in an easier way than having to scroll down lots of pages. So we're hoping to improve that. So next time I visit, hopefully you'll have a dashboard you can look at. But I'm happy to take questions about the process, or if there's questions about individual metrics, I'll have to take them back to the data owners.
Thank you, Felicity.
Andrew first.
Thank you, Felicity. Yeah, I can't find it now, but I had some questions on council properties and the relet times. So first I want to know, do you know how many empty council properties there are currently?
I would have to check, but that is obviously, they have a daily update.
Yeah, because it wasn't in the report. I know it said that's an area of concern. I was just wondering how many properties we're talking about.
It was under metrics, but obviously this was back from end of March, so it will have changed.
And also in terms of the relet time, do you know what the average is for that? Because we just know it's a worsening metric, but again it doesn't say exactly what it is.
Okay, so there's a definition of the relet, you mean?
No, just what, how many weeks are we talking?
Oh, okay.
It's getting longer apparently, but I just want to know in terms of weeks or days what we're talking about.
Okay, they should, both of those should have been in there. Just.
I can see them, I'm afraid, sorry.
No, it's
I mean, it's an area that we're monitoring closely.
And obviously it's crucial, isn't it, with the huge rating is.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to raise another point, just I don't think it was in the report. I just wondering, does the council have a policy on under-occupation of council properties and encouraging people to downsize so that larger properties can be relet to families on the waiting list? Obviously not to stick with the cat. Yes, absolutely. My mum is a perfect example. My mum's in Western. She's still living in a 4-bedroom council property on her own. You know, but if she could be incentivised to move on, you know, that would free up a big house.
Or another house as opposed to another plane. I'll find out about that. I know that is something that's looked at. I'm not sure if there's a formal policy.
Yes, I wonder. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Felicity.
But that won't be all for Felicity, actually.
Jeremy, you know
Yes, so EHC 1.2, which I believe is about affordable housing. I found this really confusing, this report, because it basically says we've not done what we wanted to do, but it doesn't, like, give any of the actual information that you would want. For example, how many affordable houses have been built, and how much has been spent out of the 12 million that we said we were going to spend. So, can I have that, please? I have a couple more. So 2 pages down, there was something about the walking and cycling to work.
Quality of life.
Yeah, one of the quality of life ones. And it's basically said, like, so I think we were like 7 or 8 something % below the target. And half the explanation is like, oh, people are taking e-scooters instead of walking or cycling, which, like, fair enough, but have we actually got any data on that? Like, that is a claim that may be true, but I guess if we don't measure how many people are taking e-scooters to work, then we don't know.
Yeah, I think, Adam. I think one of the quality of life survey has the questions set, and there are tweaks each year, but to get the consistency year on year, the questions don't often change, but it is something I think, I don't know if this year there has been a change around, I think e-scooters been added, I'm trying to remember.
I don't think they've been added necessarily, but yeah, you know, people are using e-scooters now. Some of those were people that previously cycled, previously public transport, some of them were people that drove cars, some of them were people doing big trips. There's a lot of evidence when you create new ways for people to get around more.
Yeah, I'm not saying that e-scooters bad. I'm actually like fine that if you don't want to cycle up this road. I agree. But like, I guess my point is that we should measure that. We should add that to the data rather than just kind of using it as a scapegoat if we are failing. If 100% of the people who have switched to e-scooters were walking and 0% of people who have switched from driving, then that would show that this metric is failing quite substantially. So I guess that's, yeah, kind of trying to talk around the data isn't really adequate without competing statistic. And then there's one on electric vehicle charging, which was, I think, on the same page as that e-scooters one, slightly lower maybe. That one, I guess it just says we're going to deliver EV charging points in a different way. Am I to expect that in the next report we'll be meeting the target? Like, I don't know. I guess that's, I don't know. I just thought like the fact that there was 0 delivered, and then I read that report, and then the next week the Tories were like, oh, we'll put back the date for which we start using, it starts preventing people from buying petrol cars. I'm like, oh, what a coincidence. Yeah, no, I just felt like the explanation on that was, again, kind of poorly, and yeah, it would be good to get an update after this meeting from, or an indication of whether that metric is getting worse or going to stay at 0 or will get better.
So we can provide some more information about
that one.
Yeah, that's fine. We're actually working with our combined authority colleagues on the funding is coming by the combined authority, and in fact they're beating Jacob.
Okay.
I'm sure she said, but we can update on what we're doing. I think in the paper's coming to the committee this morning, question about it.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
And that's the way the way it is, yes.
All right.
I have actually found the affordable housing. It was on page 53 in the red box where it's saying it's significantly worse than target, but Q4 there was actually 309 properties over the end of the year. So yeah, that's more than that.
That's just getting that on the record then. reduce the number of people killed or seriously injured in road traffic incidents. I didn't understand the explanation. Was it basically just saying that the metric has come back really positive because the numbers are upside down, or like they've been shifted?
So they're reliant on police for road safety information, and their information is not really very timely.
Okay, so it's just so in the next quarter we can expect it to be like way more people are dead because actually more of them were in the form of water. So we would expect it to balance out.
I don't know which way the data will go. We haven't had the data. Like the data is very delayed from the police, which is why we're being delayed reporting. I mean, the trend has been downward, but the piece of the system has been slow.
When I was writing the Vision Zero motion, which was unanimously supported by the Council of Bristol, I did speak to some place to try and get some raw data out of them, but their software system is so broken that they couldn't provide any data.
Okay, so maybe this metric's not something we can take seriously. Okay, great.
Unfortunately.
Right.
I'm sure it will be. It's very important field, so
yeah.
We've not sort of a long time, so I'm sure. Well, I hope we'll sort of.
Yeah.
So Emma, Mark, Tim.
I've got some questions actually. So my first question is also on about increasing the number of people travelling actively, walking and cycling. And it sort of hypothesises that this is to do with e-scooters. I just wondered if in this period it had taken into account the closure of Concord Way and Jail Ferry Bridge, because they are two major commutes, especially Jail Ferry Bridge, because if you, again, anecdotal, but without Jail Ferry Bridge, you either have to walk a huge amount around or it's easier to get the bus. So I wondered if that had been included in this data. Do you know?
So I think it's data up to the time frame is last year, isn't it? Quality of life data. So it wouldn't include Concord Way. Whether it include Bolton closure. That's been closed. I think probably the other thing to bear in mind, working from home, probably links between people who work from home and people that cycle to work. I would think there are more people that cycle to work that are working from home potentially as well. I think that's probably one of the other issues.
Is there a way of sort of tightening up this data then and finding out what the impact of those closures on these levels? Specifically when it's sort of a major cycling or walking route.
So we are looking at getting some new types of sensors that we will utilise to create a new baseline, because we have a load of like loop type sensors which a lot of broken. Basically the baseline data wasn't good enough to be used. So we're looking at another way of creating a kind of refreshed baseline. This is quality of life survey data, which is a point of the year you get a survey of various people. Obviously what we like is regular data on our key cycle, which shows the up and down. So that is something we're working on at the moment, looking at the best way to create a new baseline to work from, and then say whether it's improving, decreasing, etc.
Great, thank you. And my second question, a similar but a different question, was all about reducing the proportion of deaths attributed to air pollution. So I just found it a bit confusing because to me, reducing the proportion of death, that sounds quite qualitative, like as in a number of deaths, and that's not recorded here. But then the explanation was talking about a small area of ambient levels, and I'm assuming we don't, it's not going to look at the deaths that happen within that area. So again, I just wanted to get some clarification on what data is, or those figures are coming.
It's modelled public health data in a Bristol-wide area. So yeah, it's not going to look, it's not counting actual deaths. It's the model data that they produce, and it's obviously part of it's one of the city outcome measures, some of those wider measures that's there. Well, for information, but you need to be aware of it. But it's not something you can go into more detail on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Just wanted to go back on this empty council properties and relet that was mentioned earlier, because this is probably one of the more concerning things, because I don't really have much faith actually in the mitigation that comes with it. And I think we're heading into a false economy here, because I'm sure we all have anecdotal evidence from old wars we can come out with and everything else. The one that springs to mind is, in my ward, this isn't unique, where a flat is flooded, people have had to move out, they're eating in accommodation now for 11 months, the work is still not, well, I think just started, it's nowhere near finished. So we had 2 properties, it's now got 1 person in, so we've missed out on all the rent, but if we'd have spent a bit of money buying in additional surveyor support, then we would have identified what needs to be done earlier, the work would have been fixed earlier, we then have 2 people paying rents, whereas now we don't. So we've gone into false economy. So maybe this is something, not for now, but for our work programme or something to look into. I think we need to drill into that, of how this is actually working, because I don't think it is at all, and I don't really have any faith that what we're doing is going to fix it anytime soon either. So I'm flagging that up maybe as a request for us to look at. This seems to be one of those classic where it is broken, and there's no real fix.
So I realised why those metrics aren't in your report is because they have been allocated to the community scrutiny group. So you get because you've got the 7 theme reports, you've got all of them in there, but you've got the metrics that were deemed that fitted with a different remit. So that's why the data wasn't in there. I was thinking it should be in there.
Maybe I can request rather than share that he flags some concern expressed in this meeting on that metrics to the communities, and then again, do the work.
I agree.
Outsourcing.
So I cover both committees, so the scrutiny committees. So yeah, I knew we'd got it.
If you prefer the term subcontracting.
I have an unrelated point, which is, well, it's somewhat related.
Quick one.
Yeah, very quick. Just on that, going to committees, we really need this sort of performance reporting to be geared up well for there being 8 different portfolios. Just wanted to flag that.
Well, when we have the dashboard, we've got an internal version we're working on. You can look at it by council directorate, a division. You can look at it by corporate theme. You can then look at it by scrutiny committee. So it's obviously the same data, but because it's interactive, you can pick what you want to display. So we're very conscious of that moving forward. You can then tick and select which bits you want to see. So hopefully, when you get to see that, that might address some of that need.
As long as that's delivered in the next 7 months, I guess that's okay.
Well, we have a version that we're hoping will go live with the Q1 for this year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I have an idea. I think we'll talk about that offline. Tim, unless you finish, Mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, Emma nicked my first question, which was about proportion of deaths attributed to air pollution. But Adam's not here, unfortunately, because I was going to ask whether that, you might be able to answer this, John, whether that's related to the delays in the CAS coming in, and whether we had forecast better because we assumed the CAS would be in earlier. I don't. That would be an interesting thing to know if possible. But I'm also wondering whether we have accurate measures for knowing how many deaths are attributed
It's modelled. Yeah, so it's not like one person dies and it's put on a list. It's just modelled.
Yeah, it's modelled so rather than So, the thing about this report is useful because it allows you to ask a question about almost anything. So I'm going to ask.
I was just thinking the same myself.
I was just going to ask a question about the rollout of lighting. What's it called? LED lighting, and which it says here is back on target. I'm just wondering how that's going to work in terms of will people be able to request lower lighting in their areas or higher lighting or that kind of thing? Is there going to be, because that's my understanding is that's how it's going to work is we'll be able to turn the lighting up or down in entire areas, and because it's an intelligent scheme. I'm just wondering if there's going to be any public way into that, or whether all those decisions will just be made by
I'm not aware that is currently planned, but we will answer that highways team question.
Yeah.
Put the light switch on the internet, that's what you say. Let people decide.
Well, I have had people come and say the lighting is too bright in this area, we're wasting electricity and...
I heard it's all adjustable actually.
So, my understanding is the whole system makes it adjustable, but I'm wondering whether they'll,
who's going to get it?
make this decision.
We'll switch on that post.
You know full well there'll be a fight over that switch.
And just one other thing I just noticed in here is that our quality of our road surfaces is above target and in the top quartile for the country. So despite the fact that we had a motion of full council complaining about it, we're actually doing better than a lot of other places. But 35% seems a very low target for satisfaction. I was wondering where that target came from.
Set through the annual process, wasn't it? So this one.
Yeah.
Couldn't offer a lot more, an awful lot more than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a fairly low baseline for satisfaction, 35%?
I can see the point you're making.
Whether perhaps next year, if we're above target, perhaps next year we could raise the target size.
That seems perfectly reasonable.
We do that each year as performance advisors when we're doing the target setting. If something isn't, if it's below the performance of the previous year, we do challenge that to try and make sure that they are increasing. And just the other thing on the deaths from the particulate matter, I double checked the definitions, and there is a 2-year lag on that with the modelling. So it does mean that the data we've got that they've modelled is from 2 years ago. So changes that are happening now, it's going to take a while for that to feed through.
Thank you. Martin, quick one, please.
Sure. Yeah, it's just one question about the affordable housing delivery. So the reasons that's behind are because of sort of labour and supply chain issues, and also issues with the planning system. So I was just wondering what one of the actions is about trying to assess the tools the council has in its locker to try and address this and what to mitigate it. I didn't see anything explicit on what can be done to work, particularly on sort of planning delays, to try and overcome that. And also talk about the sort of housing development sector more widely. I know there's been a full sort of market delivery of housing, but affordable council-led schemes actually appear to be more robust than the general market. So there might be a potential opportunity there for greater expansion of schemes, or at least the speed with which we take them up. So just that to be taken forward in the actions.
Yeah, no, both very fair points, Councillor. So we're working very hard to try and increase the delivery of affordable homes, obviously it's a key priority, and indeed to improve planning more generally, but with a particular focus on trying to enable affordable housing as well, as you imagine. We're actually coming to, that is on the agenda for the next scrutiny, planning side of things, but it is part of my portfolio in the housing. We've got a key project working on trying to address that, trying to accelerate things. So we are working very hard on that as well, I'm sure.
Thank you. Any more? Sounds like thank you very much for listening. Really useful, thank you. As far as the agenda goes, I'm going to skip the Quarter 1 risk report and move that to the end. And I'd like to then move on to the strategic community infrastructure levy. I think it's June.
I can sit at the table.
I'm not really expecting to say anything, but
there's questions for us. I hope you can back bail next.
indeed, okay, you can't have to.
Yeah, we'll be fine. All right. I don't want to talk very long, so I'd rather you ask me questions of things that you want answers to rather than me talk to you about things that I think you might want to know about. So the report that I've done is relatively short and just to give you a very quick canter through really. As you're aware, community infrastructure levy and a SIL is a levy chargeable on most but not all new development in the city. Certain types of developments such as affordable housing, these are hospitals, etc., don't have to pay it, but most other development does. We've been collecting SIL for about 10, 11 years now. We were one of the earlier councils to do so. Each pound of SIL we get is split three ways. As a general rule, 80 pence of each pound goes towards strategic infrastructure, 15 pence of each pound goes to the area committees for them to determine what local infrastructure they want to apply it to, and the remaining 5 pence goes to cover our administration costs in setting up and collecting the SIL. Strategic SIL, which is obviously the bulk of it, is required to be spent on infrastructure, pretty much any infrastructure, provided that infrastructure supports the growth of the city as set out in the local plan. So there's needs to be a clear intrinsic link between growth in the local plan and what is delivered by strategic SIL. So, put very crudely, if let's pretend there was due to be no growth at all in fish ponds in the north-east area of the city, and we decided we wanted to spend a whole lot of money on a new park and fish ponds that was to be funded from strategic SIL. Well, that wouldn't, at first glance, be an obvious legitimate use of strategic SIL because there's no growth there. There are cases where it doesn't quite work like that, so let's pretend we wanted to put a new hospital in fish ponds that serve the whole of the city, so that's one strategic thing that serves the whole of the city, or waste transfer works, or bus station, or whatever it happens to be, then that would be obviously a legitimate use because that's a one-off facility that supports growth across the city. But generally, strategic SIL is identified and allocated to schemes that support and enable growth that's set out in the local plan. The schemes that we've allocated SIL to over the years are set out in the table in Appendix A at the bottom of the report. Since we started collecting SIL, basically we've allocated, as you can see on the slide. Keep going right down here first. Go on, more. Sorry, that's right. So over the years, we've allocated over £70 million of strategic SIL to a whole range of projects, ranging from Metro Bus Phase 1, actually there at the city centre back in the early part of the last decade, right through to things like Perry Court School in Hengrove, which we increased capacity up by 50% to support growth in Hengrove. We've made an allocation of £6 million to support growth in Bedminster Green by including flood remediation and highway works. There's a very big allocation, £20 million for the Bristol Avon flood strategy, which is intended to be drawn down over a period of years as that strategy progresses. Also, money's been allocated to things like Glencoe Square, the Road Youth Hub down in Hartcliffe, so a whole range of things that support growth across the city. Though we've allocated about £71 million of strategic SIL, since we started collecting SIL, we've collected about £51 million. So we've in effect over-allocated by £20 million. That's not really a problem because schemes, nobody wants all that money on the same day. We're collecting SIL on a daily basis, SIL's coming in all the time, and a number of the schemes that SIL's been allocated to aren't yet on the ground. So again, Bristol Avon flood strategy, 20 million allocation intended to be drawn down on probably 6 or 7 years between 2025, 26 and 2030, 31. So having allocated more than we've actually collected is not intrinsically a problem. I mean, it would potentially become a problem if you got to the point where you'd allocated so much that you're wanting to draw down a lot in a given year. We've actually got about 25 million sitting in the bank at the moment, but obviously that's allocated, but that's the amount that would be available theoretically to draw down if we want it or at this moment in time. There is a question mark over the future of SIL. That was a question mark over the future of all types of planning obligations and developer contributions, because the government has mooted broadly doing away with SIL and Section 106, which delivers affordable housing, as people mentioned, and replacing that with something called an infrastructure levy, which is a big all-embracing thing that has been consulted on. The technical approach has been consulted on and met with almost universal displeasure from everybody, from local authorities through to landowners, housing developers, housing associations, you name it. It's intrinsically unpopular right across the board. So it remains to be seen what will happen. The opposition, the Labour Party, have said if they form the next government, they won't be taking it forward. So who knows what will happen with that. If they don't take it forward, I would imagine SIL in Section 106 will remain in place. Yeah, and that's broadly me. The only other thing I was going to say, I suppose, at the moment, we're collecting about £7 to £8 million on average of SIL in total a year. So the strategic SIL component of that at 80%, so £5.5 to £6 million of strategic SIL a year. That's not a guarantee though. Obviously, collecting SIL being triggered is directly linked to major development happening, and primarily major development. So to give you an example, the Watkin Jones student scheme being delivered on the corner of Dolby Avenue in Bedminster, that generates just shy of £3 million of the SIL. Somebody building a single house on a corner block somewhere in suburban Bristol, that generates about £5,000 of the SIL. There's an awful lot of £5,000 to get you £3 million from the Dolby Avenue scheme. Obviously, you collect the money for all those schemes, but if you don't get big schemes happening, then your SIL receipts for a given year are going to be lower because it's intrinsically those big schemes that generate large amounts of SIL. So at the moment there's plenty in the pipeline, but we're reliant on those schemes continuing to happen to continue to get levels of SIL income of 7 to 8 million a year. Our absolute base is about 3 to 3.5 million a year. I would tell you now we will never get less than that, just because of the baseline level of activity, even in a bad recession, will generate that much SIL a year. And that's me done.
Thank you. I'd just like to, before we leave the market, as a point of clarification about schemes that provide high levels of affordable housing. So they do not attract the full level of SIL payments, do they?
Yeah, you're actually right, because they don't attract any SIL payments. And that does cause, in effect, it's a good thing because it helps to deliver affordable housing. And this is it's not a Bristol thing, it's a regulatory thing that those schemes don't generate affordable housing. But it does have some unintended downsides, I suppose. So, if I give an example, Council Barnaby, the scheme in your ward by Albert Bridge, the scheme there's all sorts of difficulties, the big tower level Albert Bridge. When we granted the planning permission, it was assumed that I would be providing about 20% affordable housing. The other 80% was open market housing, which generated SIL of about 1.3 million. Before the scheme started, it was then sold in totality to an affordable housing provider who provided a 100% affordable housing scheme, so therefore your 1.2 million receipt disappears. That's obviously, you can't plan for that if you don't know that the housing associations are looking to buy schemes en masse, en bloc. So there are flip sides, I suppose, of schemes becoming 100% affordable housing. It means that there's not a local component of SIL for the local community, the area committees, and there's not strategic SIL coming from it. But it does provide more affordable housing.
Not least is another good example where all the housing schemes that are being delivered there deliver the correct level of affordable housing, so you attract very little SIL.
Still got quite a lot, to be fair, yes. And Romney Avenue, the Gorham scheme, is generating about 50% affordable housing. It's still got in about 800,000 or 900,000 pounds. So Bonington Walk, likewise, about 600,000 or 700,000, 50% affordable housing. Well, it's completed. And then there's other, as you say, there's some other schemes in Buckley that are all 100% as well, yes.
Mark.
Thank you. A couple of questions from me. The first one on the relationship between SIL and Section 106. I have a similar situation to yourself. Large number of council houses being built, which is great. However, no SIL comes with that. So we get all the development, but you don't necessarily get the immediate benefit through it. Can that kind of development though still attract Section 106, and do we try and pursue some of that as part of it? Can we still put that on? Because I know some developments have both, but it seems like at the moment when we're putting forward a council proposal, even if it would, say, negatively impact Knoll Lane in my patch, I might want to improve the crossing point, no Section 106 goes with it.
Okay, so yes and no is the answer.
Excellent.
So
they made that right up for me.
No, exactly. I thought you'd appreciate the brevity, but it does need an explanation. So government's preferred approach to developer contributions is CIL, because it's equitable. It's much fairer than just lumping all the cost. It's fairer than lumping all the cost of planning obligations or developer contributions onto major developments, because small scale developments, one dwelling here or there, wouldn't pay anything in planning obligations to these large ones. So you're collecting proportionately sums of money for all things. And it also does away with the need for lots of Section 106 agreements for small scale developments, which also the government wants to reduce the volume of because they're seen as a block to getting things through the system. But you still do use planning obligations for stuff. But when you use planning obligations for stuff now, you can't do what we used to do, and you'll recall back before we introduced CIL in 2013 and before the financial crash, we had a planning obligation system which sought generic contributions to parks and open spaces and public transport and libraries, and it was a formula-based thing, and it didn't really matter where you were, you paid the amount set out in the formula. The CIL regulations, when they came in, they stopped us doing that. They said you have to fulfil certain tests in order to secure planning obligations, and there were very direct things that had to be complied with. You couldn't just see generic improvements to parks and green spaces in your area. So we ended up scaling back our use of Section 106 quite substantially when we introduced CIL. And Section 106 tends now to be used for things like traffic regulation, all those fire hydrants, replacement mitigation for loss of trees, etc. And I'm surprised you talk about a Knoll Lane pedestrian crossing sort of scenario, because that's the sort of thing that is still legitimate use of Section 106. You've got a very definite problem that's very much related to a definite something happening out on a development. So, there's a clear need for that mitigation there. So a contribution towards a pedestrian crossing from a development in Knoll Lane, Brentry, that had an impact or increased numbers crossing at a point where there was an issue would be a legitimate use of Section 106. What does sometimes happen, is that you get a scenario where a developer says, yeah, I get there's a bit of a problem there. There's always been a problem there before I came along, so I'm prepared to contribute towards that pedestrian crossing, but I'm not paying for all of it because it's not all my problem, which is fair enough. And we have in the past, I hesitate to say been guilty, but we have in the past collected lots of small pots of money towards which would deliver you a third of a pedestrian crossing and have not had the funding to deliver the rest of it, which is a problem in itself because we're holding money that we can't efficiently use.
If I may say one, then I promise I'll shut up. One of the advantages when it came to Section 106 is you are within ring fence, so it has to, the money is spent within a mile of the development. Whereas we've set up now, local CIL isn't all that local, because it can actually be spent in a community like 7 or 8 miles away from the way that we cut up the city. So you have a problem which is generated by development, they make a CIL contribution, but then that contribution wanders away and you're still left with the problem. Is there any way that you can, that CIL has to be ring-fenced the local element to actually the local area, or is it just a carte blanche?
That's the way that we, Bristol City Council, corporately chooses to do our business.
Yeah.
Is the honest answer on that. We chose, so prior to the area committees, of course, we had neighbourhood partnerships. Yeah. Members will remember were much smaller, there were 14 of them rather than the 6. Yeah. And they were much more area-based, they met more frequently, and what have you. And back in 2016, we moved towards the area committees, which started in 2018. As much as anything, it's a cost-saving exercise because neighbourhood partnerships are expensive to run. And the organisation decided what it wanted its area committees to look like. And that's why we're in that situation. There is, of course, you're in an unfortunate situation against the West, and the Area Committee 2 generally gets less development than anywhere else.
Well, we have a lot of council housing development, but yeah.
less development, maybe it's probably less development anyway actually than most of the other areas.
We're minus £10,000 in our sort.
So if and when the arena kicks off, no pun intended, you will get 400,000 or 500,000 out of that.
Well, I have a shopping list. But it could well end up in Cotton, even though we've got the issues in North Bristol.
I do know what you mean. But it's really for the area committees to decide how they wish to allocate monies. And I know that in the past there have been a case, I think in Area Committee 5, where one year, I can't remember which ward it was, anyway, one year a particular ward had a number of big projects, and it was agreed that the next year that ward would not be seen so favourably, if that makes any sense, and they'd be looking to part of their schemes elsewhere. But I know I understand that's difficult.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Varney.
Jim, thank you for the report. It was really readable, and I understood most of it. But I do have a few questions. Probably a bit silly questions, so don't be too hard on me. The first question is about the 5 pence in every pound that goes towards the sales centre and ongoing admin costs. Is that a uniform statutory amount that the government dictates, or can it vary from local authority to local authority?
Up to 5 pence.
Up to 5 pence.
You can vary it on a sort of year-by-year basis as you see fit. If 5 pence in the pound isn't required, then what happens is that percentage will go down to say 4 pence, and then 81 pence will go into the strategic pot. Yes. So the regulation requires, if you don't spend it on admin costs, it goes into the strategic pot.
Has our admin costs fluctuated at all since we've had this sales system?
Over the years it's changed, yes. It has changed on a year-by-year basis.
Thank you very much. Also, another silly question about the money in the bank. So you said there was £25 million in the bank. Is that in a high interest savings account? Is it accruing more money, or do you know what that money is doing for us?
So it doesn't attract interest, whereas Section 106 money does attract interest, because that's the way it works. That's what the Section 106 agreements are required. Section 106 money is required to be held in an interest-bearing account. Still money is not required to be held in an interest-bearing account. And obviously for the council, putting money in an interest-bearing account creates a liability. Because you've got to fund it. We're not actually going down to the nationwide and putting that 25 million in the nationwide. The council invests its money. If you talk to one of our corporate accountants, we're investing money all the time. And that £25 million of the SIL, it's held against a code in the council's accounts. But the reality is it's being invested somewhere.
So the SIL amount won't grow, but the money is growing somewhere.
The money, the SIL amount won't grow, whereas the Section 106, we do have to apply interest to it each year.
Okay, thank you. Another question about money. So you said that the SIL charge is based on the charge per square metre of the new development. Does that also vary, the amount that we charge per square metre from local authority area to local authority area, or is it a set amount?
It varies in a number of ways. So as far as housing schemes are concerned, in the inner area of Bristol we charge a higher rate than the suburban area of Bristol to affect homes. But we don't only charge so on housing, we charge it on shops, student accommodation. Student accommodation, for all of the issues it creates, is the goose that lays the golden egg as far as so it's concerned. It has a high SIL rate, and these large, I was telling you about the Dolby Evidence scheme, it generates a lot of the SIL that we receive. So yes, housing depends on the area of the city, and in the zone and out of zone, and then other things like retail, student accommodation, hotels, etc. They're flat rate across the city.
Two more questions, then, Chair. That's
very cheeky.
Is that too cheeky?
Yeah.
And then let me be relatively quick. So just regarding the SIL allocations, so quite a lot haven't started. I understand they're probably dependent on other things happening, but there's one of them at the bottom: improvements to parks and green space in growth areas across the city. £1.5 million has been allocated for that, but nothing has started. Do you know why nothing started there? Because it seems to me, we've got developments coming on track all the time.
So it's slightly more complicated than some others, but it would seem very simple at face value. That came out of a full council amendment from 2022. And the thing with full council amendments, they tend to be vague. That's not meant as a criticism or anything. It's reality. We'd like to reallocate, £1.5 million of the SIL towards improving parks and green spaces. And that's absolutely fine. But the Parks and Green Spaces team, the officers then have to go away and identify not just any old Parks and Green Space scheme, but a Parks and Green Space scheme, or Parks and Green Space schemes that are in areas where growth is.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah. They have to go away and identify Parks and Green Space schemes that are in areas of growth. Yeah. So my fish ponds example at the beginning of the presentation. So it takes some time to do that, and then those schemes need to go up to the cabinet to get formal approval. So though the council resolution was from March 2022, if Joe, can you just scroll down a second, just to the bottom of that page. The full council resolution was March 22. Keep going. The actual schemes didn't get drawn up or firmed up and approved by cabinet until April 2023. And that table was put together about a month ago, so at the end of August. So by the end of August, some of those were on the ground. Certainly some of them are, I understand from Richard Fletcher, anticipated to be on the ground in the next few months. So sorry, it's a slightly long answer to what should
No, but thank you for that. Thank Councillor Martin Furlong for that budget amendment. Finally, no, Mark, Andrew, hold it. Emma, please. I do have one more, but we'll come.
I might probably never know.
That's good, because my neck was starting to
I'm afraid I'm another area too, so this is going to be about self. I know you mentioned the neighbourhood partnerships, and that they were before my time, but they're held up in our areas. Like, you know, there's a lot of nostalgia for them, and I think it's because, you know, with Area 2 in particular, there is very few developments, there's very little money, but because a lot of that area is like older roads that were built before cars, there is a huge amount of transport, traffic, highways projects, like, you know, dealing with route running and crossings, all those different things, and we are constantly told us to sell. So as Councillor Weston says, you know, when that money comes from you, and when it does, if it does, it's going to be like descended like wolves on it, because there's such a backlog of projects that, you know, people are waiting to bid for money that just isn't there. But 90% of them are transport projects. So I'm just wondering, you know, in terms of what sort of SIL is for. I know crossings come under it, but when a lot of them are around road safety and, you know, around schools, for example, is there any way that somehow there could be some strategic SIL kind of threaded out for those areas that don't have any area SIL, but do have transport projects that are really necessary when they come to things like child safety? I mean, that comes up a lot when it's near primary schools. It just, yeah, it does feel like a bit of my camp at all.
Yeah, no. Sorry,
it's all right.
that sounds like
so at these ones.
I do get where you're coming from, and your part of the city is an interesting part of the city, because, as you say, there's not much growth. There's a lot going on. It's not all of Area 22, a lot of Area 22 is relatively affluent, so it doesn't necessarily attract monies in from other funding sources, but the council might be looking to prioritise things. So I do acknowledge that you don't necessarily get that much in the way of SIL, but we really do, you know, the regulations are clear that we need to be focusing the strategic SIL on areas of growth. And I mean, there's little bits and bobs in Bishopston and Ashdown, but there's not a great deal.
Because they're not growth issues, you know, they're maintenance and safety issues, rather than, oh, we want this because it's going to look nice or it's going to be nice. It's literally like, well, the kids can't cross the street there, or it's a maintenance issue, a road maintenance issue. And that's where it feels a bit like this doesn't feel like the right pot for this. I think Councillor Wilcox did a little research project of how many were transport projects, and it was like a huge amount. So
you have got a little bit of unspent Section 106 money in there. I know it's a little bit. It's from the cricket ground, and it's been hanging around for quite some while. There's the road safety measures in that part of the world.
Well, it was allocated, but then it was unallocated, so it needs to be reallocated.
Yeah, I'll leave that with you and Harry to sort out.
Okay. I suppose this is a question might not be able to answer. But what is the largest size that a local area could be? So, for example, if I wanted Area Committee 2 to get money, could I merge it with Area Committee 4?
Yes.
Okay,
So
it's completely arbitrary.
No, it's not. I mean, the way that the SIL regulations are drafted, the SIL regulations are drafted on the basis that everyone lives in small market towns with rural parishes around them.
Yeah.
So the SIL regulations are predicated on parishes. So the local component goes to the parish council. Now, areas like Bristol and many other large metropolitan areas, we don't have parish councils. So the regulations don't deal with that, but the guidance says in areas that are unparished, then it is for that particular SIL charging authority to work out what its own local areas are accordingly. Sorry, just burning.
So we could have
so
like 2 local areas if we wanted, rather than 6.
It is for us that we have to do it through when we went from neighbourhood partnerships to area committees, we did that through a full council resolution, a change in our constitution, because there's constitutional things as to how we make our decision making. But it would be it might be quite difficult to justify Bristol being one local area.
Yes, but I find it equally very difficult to justify the current local area. Okay, so that does answer my question.
Yeah. And you could, for argument's sake, say let's put Ashley into Area Committee 2 and Henbury into Area Committee 1. Or let's just put Ashley into Area Committee 2 and have make a small...
No, we have our own area committee. Very special.
It was before your time, I think, Councillor Barkley, but there was a whole load of work done, wasn't there, in identifying what would be workable solutions within the budgetary constraints that the council had for setting up area committees.
I've just realised a horrible thing that I've been here the longest of all the councillors, is why he's looking at me. I'm so old.
We're all freshers, aren't we? No, that answers my question. Okay, thank you.
Marley?
Just a really quick point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously the move from neighbourhood partnerships to area committees was, mainly done on the basis of budget. But one of the points about having sort of the areas in the way they were and large areas was to try and secure more equitable solutions across the city. Is that right? Was that part of the logic at the time?
Yeah, I don't know if you know Penny German, who's the sort of communities director of community service director of community. She worked long and hard trying to get something that worked. And however you looked at it, what is now Area Committee 2 was always going to be difficult. There was always going to be an area of the city. Once it was decided that the organisation wanted to split itself into 6, which was sorted out relatively early, if I recall rightly, actually there was always going to be one of those 6 that was going to struggle or would be subject to less development than most of the other areas, therefore would generate less SIL. But that was the sort of intention. I mean, it's for the organisation to decide whether it wants to relook at these things, but certainly at the time, people weren't envisaging that what is Area 25 would be generating quite as much SIL as it was because of all the work that's happened and the growth that's happening in Mount Bedminster Green and proposed growth in White House Street, or more growth in Bridgington. That was really subsequent to then. Area Committee 4, which is the central area, will always generate lots because then it's got Lawrence Western, it's got Central, it's got some Phillips, those areas. Area Committee 3 is a funny one. What is Area Committee 2 was always different. Penny couldn't really make it work because there were lots of wards in that part of the world and not much development in them, ultimately.
Sure, it's parts we should build on.
You can put that in manifesto if you like. There was a row at the time about whether we split the city into 4 chunks and match it to the constituency boundaries so that the MPs could feed in at the same time. Because at the moment it all cuts across everything. I know that's less neat now to move 4.5 constituencies, so that horse is probably bolted. But there was a discussion about doing that.
Interesting.
Tim?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting discussion, and I think at its core, there are always going to be areas that have a need for infrastructure, but it's not based upon new development. That's what we're effectively saying here. And that is basically down to the fact that there is not enough money coming into our cities to repair our crumbling infrastructure. And so therefore we have been all told by, when we've gone asking for money for things from transport, for instance, to go to SIL because they've got no other, they've only got that answer. But it's not really what SIL is not intended to repair crumbling infrastructure in parts of the city that don't have new development. And that's why but it does get used. And I'm in a ward which has benefited greatly from Bedminster's development, even though I am, some way from Bedminster, but because the amount of money generated in Bedminster has fed Brislington East and West. I mean, Brislington's now getting some development feeding into it, so we'll give a bit of that back. But that is where, that we are exactly the type of ward who's benefited from development quite a long way from where we're supposed to be, and we've spent it on some of it on road, road planning measures which have nothing to do with the development in our area. And the truth of the matter is it's because there isn't other money available and everybody's scrabbling for the tiny bits of money that there are available.
I suppose that's where my question was coming from, though, right? Because I feel like it's not that it's legally circumspect, but it's clearly not within the spirit of the rules that, I don't know, a Troopers Hill zebra crossing is created because Central Ward has a new tower block. That's clearly not what SIL is designed for, and yet that is how we've been using it for the last 6 years. Hopefully it will all change in the committees.
Well, what I was going to say is I'm getting the feeling that there's going to be a push to change the system. But I think everybody has to think very carefully about how you change it, because are you just going to move that problem from your area to somebody else's area? Are you going to ring fence smaller areas so that, for instance, the money doesn't leave Bedminster and go to Stockwood? In which case none of us will ever see any SIL again. If that discussion is going to be had, I think it has to be very carefully thought out, and I presume you would involve officers and their recommendations for how you might want to change it if you did.
So before Councillor Varney comes in with his last question, I'd like to speak about the council's ability to actually deliver the transport schemes that people are asking for, because there are schemes that I know of in my ward that were specified back in 2019 that still have not been delivered because the council does not have the ability to deliver them. And that is the real crux of it. We are trying to deliver stuff for our residents, but we can't. That's the real issue at the moment. Because we don't have it. That needs to change. Councillor Varney, your last cheeky question.
Thank you, David. Actually, it was about changes to SIL allocation next year. So at the moment, strategic SIL is allocated by what seems to be the cabinet. That will obviously change next year. Are there discussions ongoing? Maybe Jenny can answer this. What sort of system are we thinking might be in place post May 24?
It's coming to the October committee model working group, I think, unless it's the November one. That's being discussed. Obviously, a detailed proposal will not be worked up, and I will also say that it's not forecast to come into effect in the first year. So we'll have it for at least 2024-5. But the intention is that it will be redesigned by committees.
So if there isn't a cabinet from May 24, who will be making those
the
allocations?
Strategy and Resources Committee.
They call it. That was top secret. How dare you disclose this?
Any more? Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you very much, Simone, for contributing. Thank you. Right. Next up is the Temple Quarter. And I need Karen and John and Glenn.
Yes, so Claire and Karen, if you want to come and join us, thank you very much for the I'd just like to introduce in particular Karen. So Karen Mercer is the project director of the Temple Quarter, jointly appointed by ourselves and partners in the Combined Authority. Likely to have a full-time director, I think it's a key moment in the project actually. So, and Claire, it's not that I don't want to do Claire, but obviously you have had Claire and Eric Levy committed before, and you've been taking a tour around the process. So I'm not going to say very much at all, I'm going to leave it to Karen, but we're at another key moment in the Temple Quarter project. There's an awful lot going on the site. I think a number of people are probably there. There's an awful lot visibly going on at the university, as I'm sure you're aware, and that's really good to see, and we're working extremely closely with them. And there are some key decision points coming up, and some key developments in terms of work we're doing politically, involving a November cabinet paper, which I won't say anything more about, so I'll let the Karen talk about it. But suffice to say, that is something that all partners are taking through to my project, and taking it to a committee as well. Okay, I'll hand over to you, Karen, to go through.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much for letting me come here this evening. I'm just going to do a quick hand to the brief from the slides, which sort of summarise the report, and then very happy to answer questions. If we go on to the next slide. This slide really just reminds the extent of the Temple Quarter area, 130 hectares. You can see there's two phases. Phase 1, which is principally around Temple Mead Station with the multicoloured sites there, and then also St Philip's Marsh, the pink-coloured area, which is phase 2. The ambition is to deliver 10,000 new homes, 22,000 jobs, and create 1.6 billion gross value add for the Bristol area. You'll be aware that last year 94.7 million funding was granted by government to deliver the first phase. That's principally around infrastructure, around Temple Mead Station, land assembly, and creating the first plots so that we can get going on development and delivering housing and commercial workspace. We have also got the development framework that was endorsed earlier this year, which sets the framework for moving forward. We'll go on to the next slide. The report details, and John has mentioned it, there's an awful lot of work that's happening at the moment. On this slide you'll see on the top left, it's the opening of the dental school that was opened quite recently. That provides free dental care for in need in the local area, delivering some really good social value there. You'll see works to the Temple Island Hall ongoing at the moment, and then on the bottom corner there's the site for the delivery of the new innovation campus, enterprise campus at the university. And we're just about to start works on the eastern entrance, or very shortly we'll be starting works there. So there's an awful lot going on. On to the next slide. This just summarises some of our strategic priorities over the next year. So on behalf of all partners, which in Bristol City Council, the Combined Authority, Homes England and Newark Rail, we're jointly appointing a master planner to look at the first phases and how they connect into the wider community, but then also start to focus on phase 2 and how do we bring that forward. We're also appointing a placemaking consultant as well to work with us so that we're very clear what good looks like, and they'll be coming out to sort of meet with you and engage in that process so that we're incorporating that in our thinking going forward. We're looking to establish the joint delivery vehicle at the end of this year, sort of early next, and that's really important to create a sort of a single entity on behalf of all the four partners that will drive the delivery forward. We're also partners are putting in their land so that we're consolidating land. So again, looking at taking a comprehensive regeneration approach rather than piecemeal development, with the view that in the first half of next year that we go out to procure a development partner who's going to work with us, work in partnership and to the agenda that we set, which is really important. And intrinsic to that is just making sure that we deliver on the employment and skills and social value for the local community and for Bristol. So work is underway on putting together those strategies and making sure they're embedded in our business plan and programme going forward. There's been a lot of community and stakeholder engagement over the last few years. You all know Clem and Sylvan and team, and we're really wanting to do a lot more. So again, you'll be seeing a lot more of us next year as we're starting to develop the master plan and procure the partner. And importantly as well is that there's a lot of activity that's happening. We have Temple Island, we have the university. It's really important that we work together to create, on the construction logistics side, to make sure that everything is properly integrated, so that sort of road closures and those elements are done in a properly managed way as development gets going. If we go on to the next slide. In terms of the JDV remit, the creation of the JDV, or Joint Delivery Vehicle Company, is really formalising the current working arrangements that happen already across the partners. It will be project managing the phase 1 infrastructure, it will be procuring the development partner and developing the strategic outline business case for phase 2 and implementation. So I'm hoping you're going to see more of me and my team sort of over the sort of coming years as we deliver the project. Can we go on to the next slide? So the November Cabinet will seek authority and approval to enter into the joint delivery vehicle to make sure that that's established to drive forward the regeneration next year. It will also seek in the right delegations in order for the phase 1 land to be consolidated and made available for development, and also to confirm that the procurement process will go ahead to procure a development partner to be able to deliver in line with the local plan and agenda that has been set.
Chair, can I just add that's okay. Sorry, Karen, was there
No, that's it.
So on community engagement and working with communities, I mean, Karen and the team have done an awful lot of work on that. We are debating, Karen, at the moment, aren't we, how we can take that forward and how best to organise ourselves. So we warmly welcome views from the committee about how you think we should do that now or subsequently. Because that's very active discussions in the thing. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say.
No, just that we hopefully you've seen that we put in my app to a broader briefing to all of you in a large sense, all houses in October. So come along with, it will be, for some people, potentially the first kind of time seeing us this, but we are very keen to keep talking to you as we go through. So, yeah, and likewise, if you've not come to walk around and you want to, please do. Ideally sooner rather than later, because it's not great when it's bad weather. But yeah, we're very keen to keep talking to people. And likewise, as Karen touched on, through the placemaking and the master planning processes, particularly, we want your guys' input. So we will be in touch.
So one quick question before we move to the other councillors. The first slide says that the phase 1 of the master plan. The master plan will be appointed by the end of September. It's September the 28th.
And we have selected. We are just going through the governance process now to be able to make that announcement. We're very keen to get going. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Jenny, good answer.
So two questions. One thing to note is that nowhere in the papers did it actually say that the joint venture was a company. Maybe that's obvious, but I can pick that up. So maybe like an amendment to the papers, just so it's clear to the public. And I guess, so obviously there's some kind of structure about that. Maybe I should just be waiting for the cabinet papers, or maybe I missed a paper. But maybe the best thing to ask is just what risks we're taking on by entering into the venture, and what risks does it reduce? So what kind of proportion of the power do we have? That kind of question, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Can I start off on that? So, Councillor, the agreement to enter into a joint venture vehicle, I think you probably said it, was set up in October. Well, the MOU was a sort of predecessor, so before the bid was actually put in, well before my time. But yeah, and it was always envisaged that, you know, as we got a significant grant, which obviously we're very pleased we did, that would morph into something more formal between the four parts. And in fact, back last October, we did get agreement in principle to enter into a bit more. It is almost certain to be a company now, isn't it? I think we are still working on the exact format. We think it will be a company into questions, but that we are just bottoming that out, agreeing with all the partners, and put all of that detail, including, you know, the risks and how we're going to manage and mitigate them, will be set out in the cabinet paper. Is there anything else to say at this stage, Karen? Do you think? I think that's probably
No, but again, you know, sort of more than once the paper's published and we've got that information, I'm more than happy to take any questions and answer anything then.
All right, I suppose it's just, we're supposed to scrutinise it. I suppose responding to Glenn about the kind of consulting in the community part. Yeah, Lawrence Hill are not necessarily well disposed to council currently, so I really think that like broader work is going to be necessary, done just to a team, and I would suggest that perhaps it's done via community work, like community organisations, rather than dispersed without in the community. So
yeah, I agree.
But I don't know what your timetable is on that kind of social value stuff. If there is one.
In terms of the kind of community engagement, Lawrence Hill obviously not in the area but it's immediately adjacent to it, so it's been one of the kind of priority areas that we've engaged with over the last 18 months or so. And as part of my team, which is relatively small at the moment, we have commissioned 2.5 days with community development practitioners time. The idea being they're kind of boots on the ground, but also that they have all those connections into the community. So we did an event, you know, it worked for myself and worked with Hassan and people like that to get the word out, because we're really aware that. So this was during the consultation on the development framework. It was pretty dry, and I'm paid to look at it. So, you know, give these lives, so we were kind of painfully aware of that and did try and go through to create a process that made it easy to hear people's feedback. And they are, you know, it's very broad strokes, but the Lawrence Hill community, I think, possibly more than any, are really interested in the programme and being part of that as we go forward. I can't tell you exactly what that engagement programme will look like. It will begin to fall out as the master plans in particular. I think we're kind of on board. So, but yeah, we're certainly committed to that and want to take that kind of community approach.
We want to involve the councillors as well.
Yes,
Of course. So if there are events that you're not aware of that you think they would like to hear from us, that's it.
And likewise, obviously Lawrence Hill is kind of immediately adjacent, but we're taking the kind of approach of starting in and work our way out, because this is going to have an impact across all of Bristol and not the West. So I think David, you saw April, and Jane, I think was there as well at the Lockheed's Family Day.
Yep.
So at the moment it is kind of awareness raising, but I think as master plan people come in, it's much more, you know, live kind of co-creation. So.
Yeah, I think the approach that is needed to prevent this being seen as like too much gentrification, I think that's the real like top line goal. So it sounds like you've got that kind of in your head. So thank you. That's my
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Marvin, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that presentation as well. That was really useful and interesting. I thought the point about the dental hospital opening is a really good example of the social value that sort of this scheme is going to generate. So sort of to that end that I wanted to ask particularly about how this process of engagement and consultation is going to be led. Is it, you know, really seeking inputs into possible opportunities which are based on social value? Obviously this is potentially going to create huge amounts of investment, but what the benefits are existing opportunities can get from that, which should be at the forefront of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was on the strategic priority slide, but one of those is the social value strategy, but one that goes beyond the regular metrics that you might see, what they call the Tom's metrics. Yeah. One of the challenges I think I've got certainly is there are so many things that come out of this program. How do we make sure that we're not, kind of just spraying things at people, and actually, because to members of the public, there's just one program is the slide 4, I think.
The chair's for the plan to come up.
Yeah, I mean, so certainly social value, we again, along with the master plan and everything else, we want to be talking to people about it, so we're not just saying this is our version of social value.
Sure.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, we want to get out and start hearing what is needed and how we can deliver that to meet community need, and really we want to get the joint delivery vehicle started in January, so we can actually really start to sort of bed down and sort of focus on delivering on that.
Tim?
Yeah, thank you. Can you explain what the role and the scope of the development partner is in all of this?
Yeah, it's not fully signed off yet, but the intention is to secure a development partner to work with us on the first phase, and to take that forward. So we will hopefully go out to market in the first part of next year. There will be we'll be setting the parameters of what we want to see deliver. I think it's important that we're putting down a partner that will work with us in order to deliver what we want, particularly on the social value and employment skills as well as housing. And we'll be looking for them to help provide a high quality public realm mixed use scheme around the station and the sites in line with the development framework.
So it'll be somebody to actually do the work, not somebody who will go out to find other people to do it for you.
We want someone who's actually going to deliver and do work.
Right,
yeah.
Okay. And in terms of the phases, have you got a time scale for when you're hoping phase 1 will be complete, and is phase 2 going to run in parallel at some point with it? Because phase 2 seems to be a huge piece of work which has just basically been carved out as everything else that we can't do now. I mean, is it likely to be phase 2, 3 and 4? Do you think further down the line?
Well, we're looking at that. So, I mean, I think things don't actually really fit into just phase 1 and phase 2, it's fair to say, because obviously the phase 1 is focused on the grant-related stuff, and particularly around the station. There's stuff happening elsewhere already, isn't there?
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily part of phase 1.
At the school, I think
so
it's in phase 2, is it?
Yeah. In a way, we've constructed that, haven't we? Because it's essentially things that are funded by the grant on Run Station and everything else. That would probably be the way to do it. But Karen, more sophisticated answer.
No, I mean, that's absolutely right. And in reality, you want things to be going concurrently anyway, and you also want to be able to reflect sort of what's happening out there to get things going in the way that you want to as quickly as possible. So, we are focusing on phase 1 because that's much further advanced than phase 2. As John said, there is things coming forward within phase 2, but whilst we're getting our partner on board for phase 1, we want to be thinking about phase 2 and how we're delivering that. And you're absolutely right, it is a big area. It will be sub-phases within that, and we need to get going on the work with the master planner to be able to put the framework down over how this area comes forward in order to be able to deliver in line with what we all want.
Can I ask one more? Cheeky question. And in that phase 2 development, I think we've seen in our distant past that providing transport infrastructure before you develop an area can be, a very sensible way to go, so that you're growing out from the transport infrastructure rather than trying to squeeze it in to an already developed area. Is there any thought about that in terms of how we might develop that area with transport infrastructure?
Well, I'll say 2 things and then ask any questions to Karen myself. So, I mean, the last time we came here, and actually from the visits, I think it's fair to say one of the key things we took away from houses and court was the importance of the transport. infrastructure works and the improvement of the current offer that this opportunities presented. So I do think that's very important. Now, so I think it's been taken into account through the master planning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think early delivery of infrastructure that sets the framework in place is really important on that. So, and again, this is something that, which is why we're appointing a master planner to look at phase 2 to be able to find a lot more clarity over what we need to do.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen. Just in section 3.3 of your report on the Temple Island enabling works, I noticed there's going to be a biodiversity net loss there, and so the proposal is to offset that with using council parks and green spaces. Do you know how those spaces will be decided, or whether there will be councillor input into making those decisions?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. Clem might be able to.
I'll give you a half answer to the meeting. They're looking at what spaces could be.
Yes.
I think, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. I think my understanding is that the replacement has to be like for like, or is supposed to, so within the planning condition. So that is currently what they're looking at, but the aim would be that it would be within Bristol.
So within Bristol, so it doesn't necessarily be within the Temple Quarter.
Currently, the only, I think about 2% of Temple Quarter's green space is defined. So
the
park, that's kind of it. And it's again my understanding. Is you can't sort of bank it and say if there's a future park we can spend money on that. It needs to be spent on something that already exists. So obviously within Temple Quarter that would be challenging. But I can get some further information if you want. I presume you're interested primarily in Sparkle Park.
No, the whole project's up really, but I'm interested. If there were opportunities for biodiversity again, I'd have some areas in my ward I would
as a planning condition, I don't know how you can mean it, but I'll find a better answer than I'm just giving you.
And can I also very cheekily ask Suzanne's question, which I believe was about the Grosvenor Hotel and what's happened to the Grosvenor Hotel?
Sorry, I did bring this out. I'll have to get that out. So there's two aspects to that. There's the fact that the Grosvenor Hotel is part of a site, which is part of the scheme, it's part of Temple Square, which I think
it doesn't have a colour associated with it.
It doesn't have a colour, but there it is. So it is part of the scheme, and certainly the outputs of. So there's a scheme to that has planning permission that involves a whole of the Temple Square site, that the outputs of which are part of this programme. That would involve, and in fact we have that data to council, a compulsory purchase order of the Grosvenor Hotel, which is not owned by the council or any of the partners at the moment. So that's one thing, that work is still ongoing, we're working on that programme. Separately from that, Councillor and Suzanne, what happened obviously, as you know, is that there was a fire at Grosvenor. There has been a court order saying it has to be made safe, and in the meantime there's extensive fencing. The work to complete that enforcement order is out of date. It should have been done on that. So we're in ongoing discussion with the owner. Ultimately, the council, through its enforcement and control function, could carry out that works themselves. We'd rather not do that because obviously it's a responsibility of the owner, and there's issues like costs and those sorts of things. But ultimately, the council will do that if it can't be, if it isn't. And we're very conscious as part of those decisions, which is separate from what we're looking at here, of the ongoing disruption. So those discussions are ongoing. So
I heard there were nesting mats, which is why there's an excuse for not demolishing the Grosvenor Hotel, but I'm not sure that's true.
There's been a bat survey. We don't have the results of it, but they are due any day. And depending on the results of that survey, that will
wrecking ball comes in.
Well, it will have an implication on when and how demolition can take place.
Thank you.
So I've got a question around non-council ownership of land within this plan. The fruit market. Rovers have announced that they're not going to be building a stadium there. What sort of plans will be accommodating for that site? Because it's rather a large area of that urban patch.
Which quite probably owns probably business. So.
Yeah, no, it is privately owned, so they're able to come forward with plans on that. But again, it's something that we, would want as part of the master plan to be able to look at how that fits in with the wider area and have a proactive conversation with them as they bring it forward, so it delivers in line with what we would want to see happen there.
And my second question is about the university plot, because I understand they're going to be installing a rather large quantum computer there, and that obviously is going to create some excess heat. And I'm hoping that the city leap are leaping upon this heat, for want of a better phrase, and they're going to be using it to either provide cooling or heat for the rest of this area. So is the city leap plans part of your remit, or is the city leap coming in afterwards?
So we have we are working very closely with City Leap, because clearly we would want them to be involved as we're putting together the master plan and also phase 1. And similarly, we have very close relations and working arrangements and coordination with the university as well. So we will be maximising as many opportunities as we can and trying to have those conversations.
And we're talking about Fell, because there's the heat network as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good idea. I've not heard that one before. So, joining those two things together. So,
I was at a city league meeting last night.
Oh, I see.
I got it by asked this question.
Oh, okay. Good idea. I'll ask them.
Any more questions? No? Thank you very much, Karen and Claire.
Thanks, appreciate it. By all means, make a run for it.
It's raining outside, so you're not going to go too quick.
It's raining, I'm cycling. That's it, no email in my inbox. Nothing like that. I'm just due to go for a trip.
So, item on the agenda that are yet to go is the Q1 investment models. Does anybody have any questions about the Q1 investment models that they would like to table and get answered offline? Because I don't think we have necessarily a large number of people here to answer these questions.
My most common risk at the moment is the signal caffeine. Well, I have no further questions on it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, all run. I'll take run.
So, the next item, the last and remaining item, is the work programme for 23-24. Which is good how I do that. So the November meeting is the High Streets update, including business improvement districts. Loads of stuff about the flood plan, which is probably pertinent to Temple Exploitation, and of course Levy flood strategy again. And we are getting a full gamut of information about the planning service for Simone, which I think is going to be interesting. The agenda items might not appear in this order, I suspect.
No, that's since the workshop in June, I suppose, put them straight on there. So, as you mentioned earlier, we've got your planning meeting on the 12th.
Yeah.
So we can talk about more detail in the order then. The actual content details.
And
do you have a yet?
Well, I had a question about February.
Yeah. Scroll down. Yeah.
So we've got culture, strategic transport update, and the capital programme update.
Yeah, my question is about culture. I can't remember what, from a growth and regen point of view, we were looking at regards to culture.
So it's how we allocate any funding that we need and how to deploy culture stuff. Like when a housing development happens, there's a culture component to that, and how that's actually decided. Plus, I'm sure Bristol Beacon will come to this conversation.
I almost suspect, well, it might also at that point have the local plan in at that point too.
That's a local plan working group person.
Yeah, because the local plan's going to ensure an account at the end of October, so any implications from that will be cascading down there.
Any culture stuff. Yeah, I suppose so.
If you're talking about how housing development and, you know, whatever example, the example you use, how money from housing development trickles into culture, then that will be in the local plan, so that will be reflected in that.
So perhaps as well, I think on the cultural one, I think this specific request was around cultural investment program.
Yeah, so it's not
well,
yeah, it does impact.
it doesn't matter. Anyway, this isn't it.
Yeah, okay.
Probably better we can define what culture is. What is culture meetings?
That's people on board. Culture is somebody else's.
I suspect we have some questions. And we've got to find room for a ticketing update, ticketing stations update. So either of those two meetings.
When's the ticketing thing even closing? I thought it was.
They keep extending the consultation, so. So I think we've covered everything, have we, Joe?
Yeah,
That's
great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all for coming. I hope you're going to get too wet on the way home.
You'll find cold sound with the other thing.